Sunday. Good to see everybody, and we're glad that you're here. Today is part of our series of adult education presentations that we've had throughout the year. This is a special program that Zahal Shalom is being given the time and attention and given it the spotlight, if you will, to share about Zahal Shalom. Many of you are our supporters or participants in. I want to welcome you, and anyone who's not, I want to welcome you also to be a part of this. Zahal Shalom is a unique program, which is we have a special ownership here at Temple Israel. And in a minute, I'm going to introduce, when we need no introduction, Steve Farnwood, Joe Rosen in front of me. We'll talk more about it more fully, and we have a series of pictures and slides for you to see, and we were going to suggest that we give you a chance to put your questions to the side, allowing Steve and Joe to only present, and time at the end for Q&A. Because I have a strong feeling if you ask some questions along the way, we'll just get out of here before the Super Bowl starts. So I don't think that's a good idea. So maybe we could do that, give them the opportunity to share with you. So welcome to Temple Israel, welcome to the presentation, and I'm glad that you're here, and I turn it over to Steve.
Thank you, Bob. So I'm Steve Farnwood, and my wife Susan is here. We've been members of the Temple Israel for over 30 years, and we've been with Zahal Shalom since 2005, and we have many people from the Zahal Shalom community here, and I'm glad our rabbi walked in because I always wanted to do this. I'd like everybody to stand up. I never had the opportunity to do that. We're in shul, and as you can see from the slides behind us, you have all signed in for an hour-long presentation on hugging. And in the spirit of the times, I'd like you all to give yourself a big Zahal Shalom self-hug. Make it nice and tight, nice and tight. Very good, very good. You may sit down. How did I do that? A little practice, and I could a little more studying. I think is needed. So I want you, if you remember nothing else from this presentation, I'd like you to remember that hug. That's the Zahal Shalom hug, is the love and the connection that you can have with Israel through Zahal Shalom. Our mission is to help injured Israeli veterans. That's our mission. It's important work, and it is very, very fulfilling. So we are going to start the presentation in terms of what's going to happen next, okay? So I'm going to be speaking about the overall Zahal Shalom experience. I'm going to talk about our reunion. Susan is going to share a story about one of our veterans that we've had in the past. And Joe Rosen, her phenomenal photography, we can't thank her enough. She does a lot more for Zahal Shalom than just photography, but this is going to be beautiful. It'll take us all the way through our reunion tour. And then our co-president, Amanda Zonerite, is in the house, and she's going to be introduced in the last few words. And then we have 4 people that actually went on the tour with us, and they're going to give you some highlights. That should leave 30 seconds for questions. It's a lot, but we're going to try to have some open questions at the end. And then please, out in the lobby, you probably saw the table on the way in. We're going to be there. We'll answer any questions that you have, and we'll stay until you're done with your questions. And we'd love to meet you and just chat. So that's the plan for the next hour. Okay, so we're going to start with
You're going to need this if we're on the live presentation. Otherwise
Okay.
I can't hear you.
Okay. All right. Very good. Okay, we're going to start with a question that's going to be answered very quickly. How can you and your family make a deep connection with Israel? And we're going to answer it very quickly. The answer is you're going to spend 2 weeks with a delegation in Bergen County, a Zahal Shalom delegation in Bergen County, and then, if possible, you're going to go visit them in Israel. That equation is really powerful. Now, do you have to spend an entire 2 weeks? No. There's about 1 million ways you can connect with the Zahal Shalom delegation, and it can range from one afternoon and a lunch with the delegation. It can be a dinner with the delegation, and it can range all the way to actually hosting a veteran, which is the most immersive experience. So I'm going to tell you about Susan and I and our journey with Zahal Shalom through Zaki Levari. 2005, he was our first veteran. Anybody know Nancy Bortinger? Does that name? Okay, she was a long-time member here. She approached Susan and I. Little did we know she was part of Zahal Shalom. She said, "Do you want to host a veteran?" What's Zahal Shalom? I didn't know. And Nancy explained to us, we're a nonprofit organization that brings 10 Israeli veterans here every year as part of their rehabilitation. They range in ages from 25 to 65. Men, women come, Israeli, Druze, and then she also explained that we pay for everything, that Zahal Shalom does fundraising through the year, and we pay for the airfare for them to come, we pay for buses for them to tour around, we pay for food and entertainment. And as a matter of fact, we just got a special a flyer that promotes, we're looking for corporate sponsors. So if anybody has any knowledge of companies that might be interested in something like this, in donating, we have flyers for you to take at the desk outside. So we said yes. Only after Nancy came over to our house. We were very concerned. Even before we said yes, we were concerned that our house was set up right. And she said, "No worries, that's part of my job. I'll come over and we'll evaluate if everything's good." And she came over, and luckily she gave us the thumbs up. We were good, and we're so glad because this has been an amazing experience for Susan and I. So you can see Zaki in the red shirt. You can see that little wry smile of his. He was the quintessential grandfather. Our teenage kids, Samantha and Adam, loved him. We loved him. And you can see on the right, you can see they're in the Arab headdresses. This is in Sfat at a cafe. We went to visit him in 2011, and Susan's hugging Zaki. This was just this past trip, and luckily we got to see him as well on that trip. Okay. So, if I haven't said it yet, when you get to Israel and visit with your veterans, it is very special. It is unbelievable. Zaki took us all over northern Israel. This picture with Bob Obeder and the Goldsteins and Ellen and Stephanie in front of the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Our veterans got us into the police station in the old city in Jerusalem. They have us climbing up this ladder to get to the roof, and it was just amazing. And also looking down at the Wailing Wall. So the overview of the reunion tour is that we were trying to duplicate the success that we have over in America, but put it over into Israel. So in America, when the veterans come, we have an itinerary that is hour by hour. There's one committee that does nothing but that. And everybody knows where we'll be at any given time. So if you're working in New York and you can't get away for the day because you got work, you might visit us for lunch, and you'll know where dinner is. So you might come after work to see us. And we did that in Israel. Everybody knew exactly where we were going to be. So you can see here that the northern route, we started in Tel Aviv. We went up to Haifa. We went all the way to Rosh Hanikra up at the Lebanese border, over to Tiberias, where we could see the Galilee and Golan, and then down to, it might be cut off, but down to Jerusalem. That was our northern route. The southern route, we started at the Dead Sea and over to Beersheba, and then down to Eilat. Okay. We also keyed in on certain places where the Israelis like to go in Israel to relax, and that was Tiberias, the Dead Sea, and Eilat, and that worked well. We got to see people in those locations. A lot of the veterans met us there. The last piece of the equation are what we call day chairs, night chairs. In America, it's somebody who goes on the bus and who coordinates things for the day. And what I did was I flipped it, and we made it so that the day chair in Israel actually planned the day. So each person, if they were from Jerusalem, they planned the Jerusalem day. And if they were from Tel Aviv, they planned the Tel Aviv day. And it really worked out nice. It was very special to have it running like that. Now, I can't believe I got this far into the presentation without talking about food. Anyone who knows me knows that food should have come first, but I had to control myself. And when you go there, that part of the equation, they're going to want to cook for you. And you're going to have some food like you never believed. Now, unless the rabbi corrects me, I found a word that they don't have in Hebrew, and that word is potluck. They don't know what a potluck dinner is. However, they know what a big family dinner is, and they know about cooking in every single part of the family and bringing it to mom's house. They know that like crazy. So this is Moshe Yaakov. He's showing off something that he cooked for us at one of the potluck dinners. The middle photograph is in a Druze city called Yarka. They figured out how to seat and have a sit-down meal for 55 people. Came off without a hitch. And then sometimes, you see the Goldsteins here, sometimes they take you to the smallest little dive, the smallest little place in their town, and they say, don't go to the tourist traps. This is where the best hummus in Israel is. And they're going to do that for you as well. Okay, all right, so that's the overview. And Susan, you can talk about Yael.
Hi, everyone. Hi, I'm Susan Kornblit, married to Steve, and I'm here to talk about Yael. She was our veteran in 2011, and it's interesting how we got her to come visit us. When you are assigned your veteran, you're supposed to give them a call. You don't know anything about them. And back in 2011, there's no WhatsApp, there's no Facebook. So it's a phone call, and we said, hello, we're Steve and Susan, and we can't wait for you to come. And she said she wasn't too sure about it yet. And, why don't you come here? I want to meet you too, but you come to us. So it just coincidentally happened that Steve and I had never been to Israel, and we were going for the first time soon after the delegation was to come. So we were able to say, well, we are going there. So it was perfect. She came, she knew we were coming there, and when the Israelis leave, it's very sad. Saying goodbye is the hardest part, but we knew we were going to see them very quickly after, and so we didn't really have one of those sad goodbyes. And when she was in our house, I just want to mention a couple of things. When they're in your house, you get this different perspective on your house and New Jersey. And she loved how everything was green. It must have rained a lot. In May, usually everything is green. And she taught us how to say green in Hebrew, yarok. And things in Israel aren't that green, and so when it rains here too, they love the rain. She also had my son's room, which looks out on our backyard, and she'd say, "Oh, you have such a nice yard. Why don't you do anything with it?" Because in Israel we learned that they don't have a lot of property, but what they do with it is amazing. All the flowers and the gardens, and her balcony was just beautiful with different pots and plants. So you see where you live from their perspective. And when you get there, when we got there, this is us. This is the first time we were actually at the Wailing Wall, and it was just wonderful to be there with her. And she took us to so many places, and she fed us, and she cooked, and their hospitality is incredible. She knew our daughter was having a birthday party, having her birthday when we were there, so she arranged for all of us to go to her brother's house, who had more space, and invited the entire delegation to come, and they all came, and it was just quite something for Samantha and all of us. So it was really a beautiful thing to have that connection and to visit Israel with them there. But, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you. And now Joe Rosen is going to take us on a little journey. And Bob, you're going to help switch to the photos. Thank you, Jen.
Hello, everybody, and thank you. Unlike Steve, I had a connection to Israel before I got involved in the program in 1999. Over the years, we've had 3 soldiers stay with us. And I had been to Israel in 1969 as a 16-year-old as an exchange student and a reform movement program called Eisendrath International Exchange. And with a group of 16 Americans, half of us were in Tel Aviv for 4 months of high school, living with a family. And I lived with a family in Tel Aviv and went to Tichon Chadash with 2 other Americans. So that was my first introduction to Israel. And in my class, I made a friend, Orly Orman, who over the years, my family became friends with her family, and I became friends with all the sisters. They're going to come up in my pictures. In fact, I'll show you this first one. That's Ronit. She's sister number 2, and when I went on our 30th reunion, I started off by going to Istanbul, and Ronit took me around. She agreed to meet me there and take me around because she'd done business in Istanbul for over 20 years and said it would be her pleasure to do so. So I had my connections, but being involved with Zahal Shalom has deepened the connections enormously. I want to tell you about my first, in 2000, Arnon Nachmani came to stay with us. He had been injured in 1982 doing reconnaissance work in Lebanon, and he had been in a camp where they were, I guess, spying, and somebody infiltrated their camp, set off a bomb, and his 3 best friends from childhood were killed, and he had a head injury that they airlifted him out to a hospital. He didn't know who his wife was. He didn't know who his kids were. He had to relearn to speak Hebrew again. He had to relearn to walk again. It completely upended his life. When he came to visit us in 2000, this was the first time he had been out of the country. This was a guy who had worked for security for El Al, been to Germany, knew German, knew English at a time. He had not traveled. He comes to us, his wife packed an outfit for him every day of the week. He comes to our house, he looks around, he says, wait, I left Israel, but here I am at a kibbutz here in New Jersey. He felt right at home right away. And, he decided to wear what he wanted to wear every day, and I guess the whole 2 weeks was quite liberating for him. A wonderful man who insisted, first he came back a year later to attend our daughter Aviva's bat mitzvah, and then he said, you've got to come on a family vacation with us. I want you to come back. So in 2003, I went to visit him. and his family, and met Shifra for the first time, who was wonderful. And so I knew Arnon is not the most sociable guy. He did not want to see any other people from Zahal Shalom. That was like, didn't want to do that. So I stayed with him for 3 days before joining Steve's trip that started on a Monday. And the 3 days I was in Israel with him, he lives in Ramat Gan on a tall high-rise, and this is the park right below his apartment. It's beautiful. I went for several walks there that got my steps in. But the first day I was there on Friday, he took me down to Tel Aviv, and we walked along the Florentine neighborhood, Rehov Rothschild. We did a big svivuv, a big circle. And we had garanim are a big favorite, these sunflower seeds. We went to the markets, we had some burekas, we had coffee. And then that evening, his wife made a Shabbat dinner from soup to nuts, had us over. This is his son Yaniv, his daughter Hila, her partner, and his 2 grandchildren. And what's interesting is their grandchild, Michael, was born 3 months prematurely, and he's got a lot of issues consequently. And his mom is a doctor, and she was saying she was thinking of trying to get him on a keto diet, that she thought that that might help him. And I said, it's funny you should say that, but my friend Ronit, who had just taken me to Istanbul, has published 2 cookbooks in Israel on keto cooking. I said, she runs workshops, you've got to meet her. So they met Ronit, and I think their son is now on a keto diet. Hila, 5 years ago, had a stroke and remains semi-paralyzed, but with an incredible attitude. I just, everything that has befallen this family just blows me away. But they planned a fabulous weekend for me. We started out by going to the Tel Aviv Art Museum, where he had gotten me tickets to see this photo exhibit, because he knows I'm a photographer, by Micha Bar'am, who just has photographed Israel for 60 years, and they'd made 8 documentary films about it. He also took me to a concert at Beit Halachen, which is the House of the Warrior. This is one of the rehab houses for soldiers in Israel. We later had our gala there on a Tuesday night, where Miri Aloni sang Shir LaShalom to the audience that was there. I first heard Miri Aloni sing that song in 1969 at a New Year's Eve concert at Habima. So, I mean, that he got me the tickets was just extraordinary. We spent the day walking around a park in Ramat Gan. I'm always struck by the memorials that are at every park you go to for people from the neighborhood. Israel's trying to increase its bike paths and running paths, because a lot of people do that for exercise, so that's in the park now. Sculptures, artwork in places. This is all Ramat Gan. And then we went for a lovely lunch in Or Yehuda with, shawarma, you name it. And apparently next door to where we were sitting was the Maccabi soccer team. He says, Joe, that's really a big deal. I didn't know who they were, so. But bright and early on Monday morning, we started out for a tour of Tel Aviv. Steve and that was Hezi, and you can recognize some people in the pictures here. Alice and Alan and Richard Schneiderker, and in the back, Susie Goldstein. We're all going to go to the Shuk Carmel, where Israel is warmly greeting everybody. On the right is Shabi, who was one of our group leaders, and Hezi, who had been a soldier 1 year. The role I've played over the years, has 3, is to be on the itinerary committee that's planned the day trips, and usually go on almost every trip, and I bring my camera. So I have photographed, 20 years of soldiers. Ellen, wave. This is Avi, who he plays jazz. This is one way. I screwed up his name. Yeah, okay, Avi Antebi, who had severe, I think, post-traumatic stress, among other things, but he's in a band, which played for us at the gala. And he met Arnon, who showed up by surprise at the Shuk, and Arnon was very happy to see Israel. And This is just a taste of the market because I love markets and you can't get enough of them in Israel. But the prices have gone up at the shuk. Arnon and I, and with Israel. And Stephanie has a good eye. She buys great things for our gift shop if you ever want to get some stuff there. And this is by Nachlat Binyamin. On Tuesdays and Fridays, or Thursdays, there's Mondays and Thursdays. There's a Tuesday and Friday, okay, whatever. There's a wonderful crafts market on this street, and I ended up getting some nice pins for my daughter. Murals in places, we walked around. This was the Bauhaus morning. And when I had been to Israel in 2003 with Arnon, he'd gotten me a tour of the Bauhaus district. And you'll see, particularly on this street, where the poet Bialik resided, and we also posed for a group picture, lots of Bauhaus houses. And Steve, our fearless leader. Park that we passed on the way to Hamelech George, which is a great street, and Troy, who was in our group, deciding to try to have a contest with an Israeli who was doing pull-ups. But that's a nice thing about Israel. You get into conversations with people wherever you go. Susan and Alice. We had a wonderful gala on a Tuesday night where we invited lots of our veterans from over the years to celebrate 30 years. And Todd, who is in the wheelchair, runs the program from Israel. And you can see the audience was full. And what was extraordinary was many of the soldiers brought members of their family. I ran into a young soldier I hadn't seen in 15 years. When I saw him, when he was here, he was a 20-year-old who had been injured in Gaza and kind of his knee was hurting, blah, blah. I said, "How are you?" He says, "Well, this is my wife, and now I have 3 kids, and my knee's better." And it was just, wonderful. Anybody know Tali Shapiro and Alex Shapiro? They used to be members here. They now live in Renana, and they came to the event to see their friends. These are 2 former group leaders from different years who had come here. Again, more soldiers with Tali. Tali is our co-president and has made Aliyah. So she's now managing things from there. And she managed so well, she made up a flyer for us for today. It's just extraordinary. But anyway, she's with a bunch of soldiers there. This is Stephanie with one of her 3 soldiers. She saw 3 of them that evening who all came. That was Daniel. Tali Ben Yosef. This is the daughter of Alice and Alan. And everybody loves her, and she helped Steve tremendously setting up the trip. This is Sharon Raviv with his daughter who's now in the army. Sharon hosted us for an evening party. This is Alex Millman, who this is what he does in pictures. But he's also brilliant and a mathematician and gave a great talk to high school kids a couple of years ago. And Stephanie with one of her other soldiers and his wife. And this is the family of Oren Lozado, who had been a group leader for us a number of years ago, and he passed away. We went to visit his grave in Beersheba. I'll show you that. But they came and were honored at the gala. Alan and Tali. Next day, we're off to Haifa, and I had stayed with my friends, maybe it was 2 days later, but I stayed with my friend, Orly, who brought me to Haifa, and here Robert and Richard and I were in the cable car that went from Haifa University all the way down the hill. And then we walked around near the German houses and didn't get to go to the Baha'i Temple because it was closed that day, but we all posed for pictures people love posing for pictures, and ended up with a lovely, lovely lunch where Alice got to see somebody that she tutored remotely in English. So that was cool. There's Sharon, and this is on top of his rooftop where he pulled out some baskets of Moroccan outfits. People put them on, and we danced and had wonderful desserts. Yehuda Maiman, who was also on one of our delegations, had a great time serving desserts, which is typical of the festival of Mimuna, which follows Pesach. This is one of the families who came from Nahariya to visit with their Americans who were at the party, and he was a soldier on one of our delegations, and Amy Abala and David were their family, his family, and stayed with them in Nahariya. This was pictures that night on top of the penthouse where everybody was having a grand old time. And Alana was one of our soldiers a number of years ago who I think stayed with Debbie, but became friends with all of us, which is what's so extraordinary about the program, is if you hang out, you have opportune times to talk to people. I stayed with a girlfriend in Haifa that night, Galina, and we were walking around, ran into Susan at the Grand Panoramic, had a nice shot of the port, but that's my friend Galina. We know each other from college, and she was one of the people I went off tour to spend time with. She joined us the next day, as did my friend Orly, who's sitting way off to the right, in Akko, where we got a tour of Akko from, Ellie Cohen, who was one of our soldiers, set up with the head of the chief of police from Akko to take us around. It was a great, so we wandered around Akko, and this is one of our soldiers who helped plan the dinner that was extraordinary later that night. And he stayed with the Crims, I believe, and this is Bob and Steph at a gallery in Akko that had been completely bombed out and destroyed during the conflagration maybe 2 or 3 years ago when everything rumbled inside Israel. But it's been rebuilt, and this is that hummus place that Steve talked about. And the Druze village, which had wonderful tzimmerim, places that you could stay if you wanted, with 2 pools, I believe, in a hot tub. And this family cooked for 55 of us. Daron, who's a member of our executive committee, was there. Robin Nassif has lost 75 pounds since we had him here as a delegate. I think he stayed with Debbie. It's just people that you were happy to hug. I don't know that I know them any better, but they were so happy to see us. And it was so phenomenal to be there. You can see people are having a marvelous time. She cooked up. We had meat, tabbouleh for, hundreds, hummus, tahina, and then singing and hanging out. This is Yehuda Badhav, who stayed with, who was he with? Goldsteins, okay. But he's become friends of everyone with his wife. On my time off, I went to Ein Ketzerot, I think is the name of it, this wonderful antiquity in the north, and an artist village on top of the Ramat HaGolan with my friend Orly and her husband, and always eating good salads. View from her place in Kfar Varadim at night, which I find enchanting. This is all up in the Upper Galilee. The next day, I spent time with my friend Galina in Haifa by the Namal, the port, and it's becoming a very trendy, hip place to be, and you can see all the artwork, coffee shops that are now abounding. This is Frida Kahlo that was pictured, and pretty cool stuff, all by the Namal. I got to move this along, so you're seeing Haifa at high speed. And Atlit was a detention center that we went to see just south of Haifa, then Ein Hod, the artist village, which was in a formerly Arabic village now. Then this wonderful museum in Caesarea that's for free, built by the Rakaniti family. Now we're in Jerusalem, and some street shots from Jerusalem, and I rejoined the crew at the Shuk. Do I have 5 more minutes? This is everybody. No, I should end. What? 5 more minutes? Okay. These are members from Jerusalem. This is our bus owner and lawyer and friend who entertained us. And it turns out these two guys, both of their grandmothers grew up in Nachlaot in Yerushalayim, and their grandparents came from Kazakhstan. my friend Orly's daughter, who took me out to dinner. Diana Flesha, Sylvia's sister, who lives in Jerusalem. This is a street in Jerusalem. This is a memorial in a little park in Jerusalem. This is Linda Shanker Davis's niece, Abe Davis's niece. Abe of blessed memory. Her father and Abe were brothers, and I went to have coffee with her. Ein Gedi. Our walk on a very hot, lovely day after it rained, so there was water. This is where we mixed with a lot of our soldiers who took us on the hike. Then we heard a talk on why the Dead Sea is receding, and spent 2 nights at the Dead Sea. Susan climbed up. That's why we have the victory lap here, along with Stephanie, Alice, Alan, and Troy. Yes, they all walked. So this top of Masada, which if you haven't been in 20 years, has really, they have bathrooms up there, they have cement walks that you can roll wheelchairs, and they even have a scribe who will take your money and write something for you in a little store up there. So this is Masada, high speed. Have to do the mud. Mud's always good. And Amir met us back in the Dead Sea. Amir is in charge of the city police, I believe, in Jerusalem, and got everybody to the top of the police station. He has 1 leg. He swims an hour and a half every day with 1 leg. Extraordinary. Lovely man who enjoyed hanging out with us. Yehuda Maimon, this is, now we're in Beersheba. Motki took us around with Amir Rosenblatt and Sagi, who met us down there, and we got a tour of the old city of Beersheba, which the mosque is now an art museum. Ellen and David. This is Oren's grave. We spent some time there paying our respects. Orly had been with us years ago, and her son was bar mitzvahed that weekend. We saw her in Beersheba. This is...
We're going to have a full hour with Joe. It's going to be tomorrow at 12:30.
Hand off.
Thank you so
This is the
much.
lake in Beersheba.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so, please. Okay. For those people that need to get out of here on time, that'll be fine. We'll be able to roll back even to Joe if you want to see some pictures after we finish up. So, okay. Amanda, it is your turn to come on up and introduce. Thank you so much.
Hi, I am Amanda Zonarek. I'm the co-president of Zahal Shalom with Tali Bloom, who does everything for our organization from Israel, and we make a good team together. I've been involved in Zahal Shalom since 2009, was my first year as a buddy, and these are some of my veterans. Well, a couple of them. Rafa on the end, who was a Druze veteran, and Elad up on top. I was planning to go to the reunion tour for the last few years, but unfortunately my father passed away the day after the tour took off, so I wasn't able to go, which was very upsetting, and because I was really looking forward to it. But I got to, they did call me a few times and FaceTime me, and I got to see all the amazing events that they were doing. I just wanted to tell you a little story, because Steve had asked me to share one story about a veteran, and there were so many that I have. I wanted to talk to you about somebody that I did not host, but became very close with. His name was Dror Yair, and he was here in 2010, I think. He was a veteran that did not want to come on the delegation because he had very, very severe PTSD. He was refusing to come until the leader of that year, Kobe Haviv, who was a doctor, told him that he would take care of him. So they got him to come. And whenever we went somewhere and he heard a siren, he would go like this and crouch down. He was so traumatized, but he was a great guy. He looked like Rambo, like Sylvester Stallone. He had long hair. Now he has short hair. And we became close with him. So every time we go to Israel, we see him, and we go to Jerusalem, and he takes us out to his brother's restaurant for dinner, and he really... the nice thing was when he got home, his youngest daughter came to school and everybody said to her, "What did your dad get you? What did Abba get you from America? What did he get you?" And she goes, "I got my father back." That's what she said, because this experience changed his life and started his rehabilitation, and God, he never left the house. I mean, he was pretty much homebound. After that, he started going out. He got into pest control business, and now he's a lawyer. He got his law degree, and he's a practicing lawyer. And the nice thing was, just a little Lador Vador twist to this, we were close with his family, so his daughter, Moria, was here working, selling Dead Sea products in the mall, like we all see. And she hadn't really seen anything when she was here, and she was going back to Israel. So I said, "Moria, come with our delegation." You know, this was in 2018, and I said, "Come with us, come see the city, and we'll be with Israelis." So she joined the group, and there was a younger group, and she made friends, and she loved it, and she really opened up to me about what it was to live with a father with PTSD, and how she needed to do this for herself and be independent, and the experience really changed her. I got really emotional at the goodbye circle, talking about how it changed her father and how it changed her. So this is why we do what we do. And it's not just a slogan, you know, in our homes for 2 weeks, in our hearts for a lifetime, but it really makes a difference and fosters lifelong connections. I'm going to Israel, by the way, in a few weeks, and I'm planning to see a bunch of the veterans, and I have a lot of family and friends there, so I'm looking forward to it. It's not going to be the same as the reunion trip, which was amazing, but I'll still have fun. Tali's organizing a get-together with all the veterans with me. But anyway, I want to welcome all of you, and also if anybody's interested, we have, you know, we would love to talk to more people, the more the better, that become involved. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Thank you for everything you do. And next, we have a guy who's most famous for giving birth to our other co-president. And I guess he didn't actually give birth. With that introduction, Israel, you're on.
I'm Israel Bloom. I'm Israeli. I was born in Cyprus. Okay, so I made Aliyah with my parents in 1949, February 9, 1949. And when I got to America, I studied, and eventually I end up back in Israel and back to America after 5 years. And since 1999, I'm with Zahal Shalom. I do believe that Zahal Shalom is a great, great organization. I help as much as I can, but I think it should be run by American. And everyone that joined this organization says the same thing. They love it, they enjoy it. And this was one of the cheapest trips to Israel, because everything was scheduled with his honor. The bus was there for you, the restaurants were chosen for you, the hotel you had to choose by yourself. So it was really a great experience. I cannot describe how much work Steve put into it within 3 years, but I'm here really to say only about one guy who was in my house. All this year I lived in Englewood, and it was very hard for me running a business and getting the veteran, anyone who will join and will have the honor to have a soldier in his house. You have to bring them in the morning to the synagogue, you have to bring them to the other events, and to come from Englewood every morning and then to go to work and all this. So for 1 year, I volunteered to take somebody. Twice we did it. So 1 year, we had this Yoni, who has a very hard injury in one of the operation, Tzuk Eitan, and I arranged an extra tour after everybody left, I arranged an extra tour to go to the house of our president and Herzog. And Yoni, through his rehabilitation, goes to a course and he learned how to become an artist, and he draws beautifully. And he asked me, can I bring a picture? I said, by all means. I did not know that he brings such a big picture. I think we passed it before you could see the picture, if you can go back. Now, the reason I emphasize, if you see this picture, it shows the Kotel, right? The Western Wall, and he gave it, and he came there and I said, you can't just give it to the president, you have to write something. So he says, I did not write, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I said, no pressure. Write it at home, send a letter. And I arranged for the girl who received this picture to keep it till the soldier will write. And now I'm getting emotional. Yeah, please.
By the way, this is Sarah, who actually gave birth to the co-president. I should have said that.
Yeah, the birth part, right. So this is what Yoni wrote around for the painting. He said, to the Honorable President of the State of Israel, Mr. Yitzhak Herzog, my painting is a gift, this is translated obviously from Hebrew. My painting is a gift to Mr. Herzog. This painting depicts the Western Wall in a most pastoral and serene setting. I attend the Brotherhood Club at Bet HaLochem, which is part of my rehabilitation program. I was injured during Operation Protective Edge on July 8, 2014. I created this painting while attending the Brotherhood Club. That's what he wrote.
So 2.5 weeks later, the president wrote back. I do have a copy of the letter in Hebrew. Anyone who wants to see it, I'll show you later on. It's on my phone. But I want to tell you that there is no better experience to tie connection between American Jews to the Israeli in Israel. When you host someone, when you go there, you see the love that is between the two families. It's not only one-on-one, it's families. And then when we all get together and with the Druze, and I keep doing it every year when I go there and I get a bunch of people and we go, we have beer or we have coffee or we have dinners or whatever. So if you are joining this group, all you have to do with you is a couple of dollars and open your heart and open your house, and I guarantee you, you're gonna have experience that you will never forget. Thank you.
Thank you, Israel. Okay, this guy doesn't need an introduction. Anybody who doesn't know him, Bob Obeter, past president of the synagogue.
Thank you, Steve. So the last time I was in Israel was 1971, and I was actually planning a trip to Israel this year with JNF to visit the trees that I had planted 51 years ago. But I mentioned this to Joe, and she said, well, come with us, come with us. Call Steve Kornblit and, come with Zahal Shalom. And, I knew Zahal Shalom primarily from Joe, from Steve, from the Corwins and Aryeh and Nancy, and been to a lot of events over the years, but I'd never hosted a soldier. But I called Steve, he said, yeah, come on this trip. And, as soon as I got there, I got texts from my childhood friends that I went to Israel with in 1971, and they asked, what are some of the biggest changes? And I said that, a lot fewer camels, a lot more traffic, and the people are so incredibly nice. and maybe I missed the experience 51 years ago, but this time I did not. And one of the first days in Israel, I realized I had forgotten an important medication, and the pharmacist and Susan said, "Holy shit, that's an important medication you got." So what do? We call Israel. We call Israel Bloom. And, lo and behold, he's taking the same medication. So I managed to get some pills from Israel, but, I needed to call a doctor to get a prescription. So I get a prescription from the doctor. He comes to the hotel. I go to a pharmacy. With Israel, I go to a pharmacy. And Israel's talking to the pharmacy, and I hear some back and forth in Hebrew, and it goes, "Lo b'haaretz." No, we don't have this medication in all of Israel. So Israel Bloom says, "Well, I'm going to call the doctor." So he calls the doctor and speaks with the doctor, and that evening I get the pills at my hotel delivered by the doctor. I'm not sure how, but Israel made it work. One of the greatest things about going to Israel with this group was the interaction with the Israelis. And in the middle picture here, I'm with Stephanie and the leader, the gentleman who owns the bus company that we used, and a psychologist who was the head of a delegation in prior years. And after the walking tour that Joe had mentioned of Jerusalem, these two Israelis said to Stephanie and I were hanging out, and the rest of the group is going shopping. Stephanie already convinced me, don't go shopping anywhere except this place with me. And that's where Stephanie buys the stuff for the gift shop. So I said, okay, I'm happy not to shop. And these two gentlemen said, let's go for a beer. So we go for a beer. It's, at lunchtime, 2 o'clock, whatever it is. And the bartender is just happy. She's thrilled. She's having a good time. She's having a good time with us. She asked me for my phone, and she takes a selfie. And, we're talking to Lyle and I forgot his name. Oren. The psychologist. Ophir. So talking to Ophir, and Ophir is a psychologist who specializes in PTSD. And, he told me, how much he has gotten out of Zahal Shalom, not only as the delegation leader when he came to the States, but, today when he, meets others who are going to be part of the trips to the States. I think I have. So the picture on the right really moved me. So Leal was, again, the leader. Was he a leader of the delegation? No. So he came to the States, and he's the gentleman who owns the bus company. He's also an attorney. And, incredibly interesting guy, and one of the nicest people you'd ever want to meet. And, he's a disabled Israeli veteran, and that's his wife in the photo. And their son, who they haven't seen and we were having dinner at his house that night. And his son, who he hadn't seen in a while, his wife hadn't seen in a while, comes home for dinner to be part of our group. And the way his mother looked at him when he came through the door, she may have been, probably is, an Israeli veteran as well, but the way she looked at him when he came into the door with such a sense of relief. She's an Israeli. Everybody goes in the army, but her son is in the army now. And it was just so moving to watch them visit with their son, have a very private moment with him in a very public setting, and that really got me going. And then the last thing I want to say is, if you're thinking about a trip to Israel, go with Steve and Susan. You know, or the rabbi's trip in 2024.
Coming way before our next trip.
And, you know, everything is so organized. And, you know, some of you know I can't lift heavy things, and I'm slow and all this other stuff. And, you know, Steve and Susan just make sure that everybody has a great time, that, you know, somebody else is schlepping my luggage for me. And, you know, it's just an incredible experience. And I guarantee you it won't be 51 years before I go back to Israel.
Thank you so much, Bob. And I can't let this moment pass without saying that when the son walked in the door, he told his commanding officer that his uncle, Steve, was in, and that's how he got off for the day. At first, I thought he was kidding, but he was not kidding. He was not kidding. Okay. Ellen, you're on. Ellen is our vice president. As a matter of fact, she's our co-vice president, and I have the honor of being the other co-vice president. So from one vice president to another. Well, we're moving.
Hi, everybody. My husband David and I have been involved with Zahal Shalom since 2014. Our initial connections to Israel were through Open Hearts, Open Homes, when we hosted 2 teenagers, 2 different summers, about 17, 16 years ago. And then we visited Israel in, I think it was 2011, when our daughter was studying in Israel, and we got to see one of our Open Hearts, Open Homes girls. And when we were zipping through Sderot, she came out of high school and met us. And when we were in Israel in 2011, Mindy was on our trip with us. It was the trip sponsored, the last trip sponsored through the Y in Washington Township. And while we were on the trip, there was a couple who took the day off from our trip and were visiting their soldier. I had no idea what that was or what that meant. And then when we came home and Mindy and I were at the Y one day, Mindy said, you know, remember the couple on our trip? They left for the day. They were going to visit their soldier. There's this program where veterans come and you can host them. You know, do you want to host a veteran? So I said, okay. Didn't have as much introduction as you guys did. It was just like, okay, like, why not? We've done this before. And I'm so glad that Mindy approached us, and we've been involved with the program ever since. And we've hosted and buddied with a total of 6 veterans. And one story that I wanted to share was about our veteran Moshe, and that's our buddy family, the Rosens, who live in Fairlawn. The week before he was slotted to come on the delegation, his mom passed away. And he was the primary caretaker for her, or the most involved in his family. And he decided he didn't want to come. And but his family really thought he deserved to come. So his family was pushing him to come. And when we made that phone call, like you do before a veteran comes, to find out what they like to eat and what they like to do and what they want to see, that's when we found out that he didn't feel comfortable coming. His English isn't so great. So we had group phone call with his son and daughter, who speak English very well, fortunately. So after our conversation and everything, he felt comfortable coming and decided he would come. We felt that it was him and his family. Like, we felt very comfortable, like, with his whole family before he even got here, because we had, had conversations with them over the phone. So, and while we were here, he was very in touch with his family, constantly video chatting from wherever we were, Times Square or wherever. So I was on the phone calls with his daughter and son often. So I felt, David and I felt very close to his whole family. So when we went to Israel on Steve's amazing trip, we were very happy to be invited by his whole family, which you can see on the right-hand side. And we had a lovely, amazing dinner. Every course we had a barbecue on their deck, and every course the son said, save room, save room. I'm like, you mean this isn't it? It's like, oh gosh. When Moshe was here, we only served him like one main course. I felt a little guilty. But oh well, but we had a great time meeting everybody. And that's him on the left. When he also met us at the airport, which is not that close from where he lives, but he came to the airport when we arrived. And that's him having dinner at Ayal's home, which was Steve's veteran. That was on election night, which was quite an exciting night to be in Israel. So that was just one of the personal stories about our veterans. But we've loved being part of the program, so much so that a year ago I decided to start learning Hebrew, which is crazy hard, but I'm trying. And when we were in Israel, Steve and I practiced our Hebrew. We did. So David and I feel so close to our veterans and so close to Israel, and are so much more connected and in touch with, communicating with them, and very interesting to have someone in your home from another country and have them ask you questions about politics and things that are going on here and how it's perceived there. It's somehow, I never really thought about how other people perceive our country. I just think of, I live here, I know how, our perspectives, but very interesting when you have someone living with you that you can have these kinds of discussions about. So we've found the program to be amazing, fulfilling, wonderful people. I can't say enough about it, and we welcome anybody to get involved in any way you'd like. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. And to finish up, we've got Alice. Alice is a member of our Host and Buddy committee, and here you go.
Hello, everyone. Oh, okay. Oh. There we go. Get out of the way of the slides is the first thing you do when you are making a presentation. So, hi, I'm Alice Hefner. I am co-chair of the Host and Buddy Committee with Mindy, who is my co-chair sitting there, and Susan Kornblit is one of our members. I have been a board member since, I don't know how long, for a very long time ago. We have hosted 5 times and buddied 4 times. And we loved every minute of our part of the reverse delegation, the reunion tour. And I think we're going to revise the motto for Zahal Shalom for in our homes for 2 weeks, in our hearts forever, in Israel, OMG. It really was just, every day was just an amazing opportunity to connect with our veterans. People who hadn't been, who had been on the delegation 30 years ago came out to be part of it and just spoke about how much that experience moved them and changed their lives. So it really, every day was just a chance to kind of reinforce and re-engage with all the wonderful things that happened through this program. You will see our veteran Tali, as soon as everyone says Tali's name, everybody starts nodding their head, because Tali likes to use the word for people she knows as special. If there's something, usually about something that's annoying about them, but oftentimes it's about just some kind of characteristic about, that she finds valuable, and Tali is one special individual. When we first made contact with her, we sent emails, and I don't think we called, but we might have. She sends an email back in Technicolor, in all capitals that are kind of going like this. It says, "I'm so excited to meet you." And we're like, okay. She was ready. And her English was phenomenal. We picked her up at Temple Israel, and we put her in the car. And as we're driving up the road, first she sees the sign for Hohokus, which makes her hysterical. She thinks that is the funniest thing she's ever heard. And every time she comes back to the stage, she just breaks up when she sees Hohokus. And then she says, I've always wondered, what's the tri-state area? And we were like, so how does she know the tri-state area? Well, she learned her English by watching Law and Order for years and years and years and years. So, her English is just incredible. And Steve, where are you? There you are. So how would you describe Tali as your coordinator in Israel? What would you say?
Oh my God. She translated every word, every itinerary, every document into Hebrew from the English. So without her, we wouldn't have communicated with anyone.
And as a testament to Tali, not only her energy and intellect and ability, but she was so concerned that Steve would be disappointed that she hounded people to make sure that they came, because she did not want Steve to be sad that the Israelis wouldn't show up, and they showed up. It was very good. So just a little bit about Tali, I guess, so you can see that we were, and by the way, here's Alan, my husband, who is our partner in all things, and daddy to Tali. And these are, let's see, we have our daughter, Claire, is there, and our buddy family, the Krolls, and David Siegel, may he rest in peace. And this was us at some point, I guess, while we were here on the delegation with Tali, and then another time when we went back to visit Tali. And let me go to the next picture. Why don't you do it? I'm going to mess it up. So just a couple things about Tali. It's kind of hard to find the words for her story. She has had a difficult and complicated life. She was an army nurse who often reported to the scenes of terrorist bombings, and she would be the first one on the scene to be helping victims, and that left a very big emotional scar in her life. Also some physical injuries that she's had to overcome. But she's just a person who has so much personality. Like, you meet her and you know you've met Tali. She just, she has so many challenges, but she just brims with life and with love. And even though her disappointments and challenges that she's had, she just has this incredible hope and this incredible connection to people. She got trained to be a hydrotherapist, and she was working with autistic adults. And through a lot of determination, she now works at Bet Elochem, which is the warrior house where we get our veterans from. And she is a hydrotherapist at Bet Elochem in Tel Aviv. So, to spend time with Tali is just to be so inspired, and I mean, her story inspires me every day, and she just is quite an individual, and we were just so lucky to have her in our lives. And I think, just in terms of what connects us to Israel, she in a way encapsulates all the experiences that we've had by being connected to Israel through Zahal. Certainly, when you're with someone 2 weeks, like basically every hour except that when they're in Washington, you just develop this incredible bond. You just are immersively together, you're sharing lives. We were, talking about our kids and just, everything. You create this incredible bond that transcends, all that time. It also gave me a deeper understanding of the complexities of Israeli life, just seeing it through the eyes of someone who lives there. You really get a chance to look under the hood. I'd spent a lot of time in Israel before I became involved in Zahal Shalom. I did a semester there. I graduated high school early and went to Israel. I went to Old Pond, did social work, field work there. So, but at that stage of my life, to be able to be there just gives you a very different perspective. Also, I'm just struck particularly by Tali, but all the veterans that we speak with, is just their patriotism and their courage, their determination to live a normal life, even in the face of existential threats in the neighborhood they're in, and just the challenges of living in Israel, which are monumental in many ways. It's wonderful, but it's also really hard. I also just think about her remarkable resilience in the face of her physical disabilities, but also her psychological trauma, that despite it all, she has just kind of kept soldiering on, and she really relies on the support network of all the families. We have so many people here who Tali wasn't their veteran, but have this incredibly close relationship with her. So, all of those things just gave me some sense about how our veterans and all Israelis really, they want to live full lives. They want meaningful work, loving relationships with family, a chance to travel and enjoy la bella vida, the chaim tovim, a good life. So, whether we're hosting veterans here or descending upon them in Israel, being part of Zahal Shalom is an act of love. And I think it's one small way that our family has been able to give back to a people in a country who mean so much to us.
Thank you so much, Alice. Can somebody tell me what time it is? Okay, we did pretty good. We did pretty well. If somebody needs to leave, we understand, but I don't want to push you out because we have the room, and this has been just wonderful for me. Believe it or not, I learned some things today. So we can move into a Q&A for a few minutes, and again, if I didn't mention it before, we are happy to meet you outside at our table and show you some things and talk to you and answer any questions that don't get answered. So, okay, anybody have any questions? Okay. Okay, all right. Thank you, Debbie, for a good question. Thank you. So the question is, what is this whole thing about a host family and a buddy family? Okay, so the host family is going to be where the veterans sleep for the entire 2 weeks. So they're with you for 2 weeks, but there are time constraints and there are conflicts that happen throughout a 2-week period for the hosts, and they would ask their buddy, who's attached to them, to help out on this day, on that day, and they are there to kind of support the host family. Amanda, any thoughts on other things that should be mentioned?
The buddy family can be as involved as they want to be, and the more involved you are, the more you get out of the program. So some buddy families go on the trips every day. Can I share a little bit about the program? So they are.
Come on up. Come on up. Okay.
Just because I think it's important to know a little bit about, I'm sorry. We heard a lot about Israel, but I wanted to tell you a little bit about our program here, and Joe has been the chair of that, so if you jump in if I forget something. Most of our days are spent very busy with the veterans, and a lot of the Americans come on the trips with us, which makes it fun. The first few years I did it, I didn't go on a lot the first year, and then I felt a little bit like not a part of things. So the more you go, the more you get to know all 10 members of the delegation. So we take them to various tourist and scenic places. We spend a lot of time in New York City. We have a bus, and we all go into New York City. Steve runs a wonderful tour for the day. Joe runs a wonderful tour. And we tour, Midtown. We take them to a Broadway show. We go downtown. We sometimes go to museums. We walk around, and it's really a wonderful opportunity for them to really get immersed in New York City. We go on trips outside of New York City, for example, the Sculpture Garden in South Jersey, and we take them to Princeton just to see a college town. We have a lot of, this year we're planning to take them to Liberty State Park and take them to the ferry ride to the Statue of Liberty. We've done the Circle Line before. We've done the Intrepid. Our program changes a little bit each year. And they love that. They love that. We also do some local things. Joe has always arranged recently a visit with the Paramus Police Station, and we go there and we meet with them because they had a delegation of police officers that had gone to Israel, so they had to train and to talk about terrorism and things like that. So they really enjoy that visit. We also try to interact with some type of schools. We've been to Solomon Schechter. We used to go to high school, Pascack Valley, and have the veterans speak and tell their stories. We interact with synagogues, and then they go to Washington, D.C. for 3 days. I haven't been on that trip, but I know Joe Rosen does a lot of touring there. They go to the Capitol. They go to various sites in Washington, D.C. So that's just a little overview of the program. There's a lot of evenings of barbecues and house parties at people's houses and restaurants. Oh, you do that.
Just, if anybody would like to come, on Friday night, May 19th, we're having at Temple Israel Bonfire Shabbat, which starts with a barbecue. Then there's bonfire, and Amichai Margolis is leading services, and it's followed by dessert. This year we're going to bring our host and buddy families and soldiers to join in at the barbecue and stay for services. So anybody here at the temple, it's a great time to just come and meet people if you're not formally involved with the program. Debbie. Wonderful. May 11th, another plug. It costs us $75,000 to run the program a year, and mostly that comes from small donations from lots of people, which have accumulated over the years. We have one fundraising event, and this year it's going to be on May 11th at Beth Rashon. It's our Zahal Shalom Gala, and attending will be all of the members of the delegation, all of the host and buddy families, and anybody else who would like to support the program by coming and buying a ticket and then buying silent auction items or making donations. That's how we're going to raise money for next year's delegation. Any other plugs that Tali wants me to make?
I was going to say that we always welcome new members to come and join us, and the more people, the better. But we also really, really need donations because we have not had veterans in a few years, and things have slowed down, and we really need to keep the program going by donations from wonderful people. And small or large, we welcome everything. And coming to the gala or just making a donation through our website, and we'll talk about that on the way out if anybody is interested. Thank you.
I got caught up in the pictures, I'm sorry about that, whatever, but I just want to say, something that's magical, you don't become necessarily best friends with each soldier you host or buddy. I think it's rare when that connection happens. But you get to know people. And there's something I have found particularly moving in that when I'm with the delegation, every time I go to the city, I find I'm in the present, in a moment, in a way that I'm not in life usually. I also find they come from all sorts of backgrounds. Moroccan, Yemenite, Ethiopian, Polish, German, you name it. They're Israelis. And if you ask them questions about when did your family come to Israel, how's it feel to be in compulsory army service, where did you go to school, you find out an awful lot about Israel and the racism that exists there, that exists here. But what happens is you have a group of 10 people, we know nothing about them. And you meet them for who they are at that moment. And they look you in the eye and they say, are you a nice person? Are you truthful? And they make an instant evaluation. And somehow you get to know what's really important about the other person. It doesn't matter if they went to school, whatever they did with their lives. You're connecting at that moment. And I find that very powerful. And for me, it's great energy for connecting with people. So
I also just want to say that as wonderful as the connection is with the Israelis, it's also a connection between all of us.
Amen.
Some of my best friends through this organization, and we're from all different synagogues. I'm at Beth Rishon, Nikki's in Fairlawn, we're all from all over, and we connect with each other, and we make wonderful friends here that are lifelong friends. So that's another benefit.
So we hope we'll see you at the gala. We hope we'll see you, not this year, because I think you guys found all your host and buddies for this year. I'm not sure. But next year for our host and buddies. And, thank you for coming today. Thank you, Steve, for doing
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks to all of our speakers. I've got just the right 1-minute video clip of the experience we had when our veterans took us into the police station at the Dead Sea. And listen I just moved the wall all the way to the Dead Sea. Sorry about that. All right, hang on.
Wow. Holy cow. Oh my God. Holy cow. Wow.
אוקיי, אז אין טעם שנשלח לך מיקום כרגע, ואנחנו מתנהגים, אבל כשתהיה קרוב... שלי, שלי. דבר איתי.
Oh, that's mine. That was my bottle. Okay, we are happy to see you out at our table and chat, and thank you everyone